Welcome to EDP 913 Statistical Analysis and Quantification Educational Planning. I am Juliet Inegbedion. I'm going to take you through this course. First, we're going to look at the concept and nature of educational planning, statistics, and quantification methods. What is the intended learning outcome for this course? By the end of this unit, you would have explain the concept of planning and educational planning. Demonstrated basic statistical skills in attending to educational challenges. Now, let us look at the first part. What is statistics? Statistics cannot simply be a collection of facts. If it were, there would hardly be much point in studying the subject. So statistics is much more than that. When we're talking about statistics, statistics may be described as the collection, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of numerical data. Therefore, in educational planning, you work with statistics, you work with data. You're going to collect, you're going to interpret, present, analyze, interpret, and you now use it. And the data you collect for educational planning helps in coming up with policies that could enhance the educational system. Also, we may want to know the statistical procedures. What are the procedures we require in statistics? The first thing is for you to identify a challenge that needs to receive solution. And once that challenge has been identified, you need to now find out the data that you require to attend to that challenge. And that will lead to collection of your data. After you've collected the data, you're going to present the data the way it is being collected. And let's say, for example, you want to know the total number of students that are enrolled in a particular locality. So what you need to do is to go to where you can find those data, collect the data. Presentation means you are going to present it to show the total number of students that are enrolled that you have gone to look for. Sometimes you may go further depending on the challenge you want to solve by presenting the enrollment by sex, by state, by geographical location, and so on. Now, the next thing is for you to analyze. You analyze the data. There are statistical tools you could use to analyze your data. After the analysis, the next stage is for you to interpret the data that has been analyzed. You have collected, you may have tried to find out the percentage of boys or the percentage of male against the female. And you might equally find out the percentage of the enrollment you have in rural area as against the urban area. Now, once this has been ascertained with your analysis, with the statistics you are using, the next thing is for you to interpret what the result says. And once that interpretation is done, that is what you're going to use to bring out the planning that is required. So when you are talking about planning, what are we talking about in the real sense of it? When you're talking about planning, planning is usually futuristic. You want to come up with what is going to be done in the future. But a coming up of what is going to be done in the future is going to be systematic. You want to do it in a systematic form that you'll be able to come up with what the future is going to be. Several persons have defined planning. Planning is deliberate. It is not accidental. It is organized. It's a continuous process of identifying different elements and aspects of an organization. So when you're talking about planning, it's not something that is maybe accidental. It's a deliberate act. And that takes us to educational planning. What is educational planning? Looking at what educational planning entails, we are trying to see how you can use the available resources, to solve the challenges that are around the educational system. And if you want to use the available resources to solve the challenges, you need to plan. You need to allocate those resources. And for you to be able to allocate the resources, you need to know the prevailing situation so that you know how those resources could be allocated. For example, according to 1981, it said the focus of educational planning is the application of rational and systematic analysis of the educational production function with a view to suggesting what action or measure would make the production of education more efficient and effective. So we try to plan. You are planning with the resources. Let's say, for example, you want to set up schools. We need to know the type of school that will be required, the type of education that will be required, the geographical location, the demography of the persons that are there. This will help us to know what you need to plan for. In this case, planning helps a great deal. Now, let's look at the basic statistics you could use when you want to plan. We have what we call quantitative. Quantitative deals with figures. How many students are enrolled in a particular school? 30, 40, that is quantitative. Now we have qualitative. When you are doing planning, going into planning, you must have some qualitative data that will be required. For example, the benchmark. The benchmark is a qualitative data. It's not quantitative, but it's qualitative. Now your data could be chronological, and at the same time, it could be geographical. You may want to find out according to maybe age. You may want to find out, yes, you've gotten the age of students that are enrolled in a particular school. We want to find out their geographical location. Now, having said so, I want you to take this up. Visit a school or a unit in the Ministry of Education in charge of educational planning in the school or state or nation. Now, what are you going to do? Identify the type of data collected in the office. Classify the data into quantitative, qualitative, chronological, and geographical data. With this, see you in the next discussion.